All right, I have 1 minute after the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody, this is Scott Jaycox from Covestic. Welcome to our webinar, Tips for Cracking the CMDB Code and Solving Business Problems. This is part 2 in our series for CMDB Done Right. All right, go ahead and cover the agenda. We'll start with real quick introductions. We'll do a recap of the first in the series, the promise of CMDB. Talk a bit more about why CMDB efforts often fail. Talk about a proven approach to a successful CMDB. We also have our partner QuickNexus here who will demo their discovery admin solution, and we'll wrap up with a recap and an open Q&A. All right, introduction. So my name is Scott Jaycox. I lead our ServiceNow practice here at Covestic. We also have James Devine. He is one of our senior solutions architects. And we also have our partner Shivraj Vishare from QuickNexus here. Real quick overview of Covestic. We were founded in 2001. We've always been in the IT service management consulting business. We've been a ServiceNow partner since 2012. Roughly 225 consultants, over 100 ServiceNow projects. We maintain a CSAT score of over 9, and we maintain about a 90% repeat business KPI. And Shiv, I'll turn it over to you to do a quick overview of QuickNexus.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. Hello, everybody. This is Shiv from QuickNexus. A little bit about QuickNexus. We were founded in 2016, and we focus exclusively on the CMDB and ServiceNow. We've done more than 90 CMDB implementations. Over half of them have been with ServiceNow Discovery, and we're a bronze technology partner. Now, we're absolutely going to talk about our product Discovery Admin, but we're also going to focus on the best practices that we recommend every customer, every ServiceNow Discovery customer embrace when they're implementing ServiceNow Discovery. So with that, over to you, James.
Thank you, Shiv. Hello, everyone. James Devine, Senior Solutions Architect with Covestic. As Scott mentioned, this is part 2 in a 2-part series on CMDB. In the previous episode, which you should be able to find online under the Covestic Resources webpage, you will find the previous episode, which was focused primarily on the business side of CMDB and making the business case for it. This is a more technical deep dive into some demos, some tools, and things that will actually make you be successful. But just for those that weren't able to join us for the previous session, let's just talk real quick about why we're discussing this. The CMDB has been a bit of an elusive target for many organizations for a dozen years. It's a fantastic concept, something that provides tons of benefits if you have the means to have it up and running, have it reliable, have the data accurate, and be able to maintain it ongoing. So when you have the definition of all of your business services, and you have all of the CIs that support them and the relationships between them, and you have that digital representation of your entire infrastructure, that gives you tremendous maturity when it comes to things like your change management process, being able to quickly identify risk impacts of potential changes based off of what CIs, what business services are being impacted by those CIs. Incident management becomes much easier. You get fantastic reporting capabilities. You know exactly who you need to communicate out to if there's an outage based off of who is subscribed to which business services, which ones are impacted. And then we talked a little bit in the last session about customer service. If you are utilizing ServiceNow for your customer service management and you are an infrastructure company, you know immediately what the impact of an outage is to which customer base that you're dealing with. So you really do get a lot of functionality there. So there's a lot of really huge upsides to having the CMDB. But as we all know, this is the big scary number that Gartner puts out there, that 70% of CMDB efforts fail. And they fail primarily for a couple of reasons. One, they're not given adequate resources as a separate process. There's usually not a custodian or a librarian overlooking the process and the data itself. Organizations oftentimes try to be too technical in their approach to CMDB. They say we have all this great data coming from Altiris and SolarWinds as SCCM. We're just going to dump all that into ServiceNow and call that our CMDB. That's great. It's good to have that technical information, but remember that CMDB is a business effort. It is a business process, and starting at the top down with your business services and working your way down from there, and only consuming as much data as you can actually handle in the process is really the best way to get to having an ongoing success story with your CMDB. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shiv, who is going to give us some fantastic demos of not just ServiceNow and Discovery, but also the QuickNexus Discovery Admin tool. Over to you, Shiv.
Thank you, James. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And if you could confirm that you can see my screen, I'll get started right away.
Looks good.
Awesome. All right. Hello, everybody. So as Jim mentioned, this session is going to be about technology. So I'm actually going to jump right in. And yes, we are definitely going to talk about Discovery Admin and how that works with and on the ServiceNow platform. But before that, let's talk about ServiceNow and what you need to have a great CMDB more from the technical standpoint. Now, I do want to clarify that Discovery Admin is not an alternative to ServiceNow Discovery. It basically simplifies the manual overhead associated with the maintenance of the CMDB. And we require the ServiceNow CMDB and ServiceNow Discovery to have a great CMDB. So with that said, let's get a little bit of understanding in terms of what is underpinning or what does the ServiceNow CMDB really have and how we can use it to our advantage. So the first is that the ServiceNow CMDB is a hierarchical, relational, and a highly normalized database. Now, the relational portion of it, we're familiar with the term relational databases. We're also familiar with the term normalized databases. But for some people on the call, the hierarchical concept may be something that is new. So the best way to explain a hierarchical database is, like the name suggests, it's a parent-child relationship. So any tables that are in the parent side of the house, which is maybe your attributes, your business rules, any codes, any configurations, all of those capabilities and those features are intuitively inherited or passed down to the child tables. And what that does, it gives us an amazing amount of scalability by leveraging what has already been defined at the upper level and then extending that to the lower parts of the table hierarchy. So it's really what we used to from a coding standpoint. All of that is now represented as a hierarchical database for the tables. When I say tables, in ServiceNow terms, I actually mean CI classes. And most of us know that we have hundreds of CI classes, CI attributes, CI relationships in the ServiceNow CMDB, which can be directly leveraged. But sometimes it is very overwhelming to see, okay, there's so much stuff out there. Where do I start? What do I do? So our recommendation is we rationalize our design with what ServiceNow Discovery and Service Mapping would do. Now, there's many reasons for that. One is if you do use ServiceNow Discovery and Service Mapping, of course, there's obvious synergies there. But even if you don't, ServiceNow has already rationalized and figured out what the data structure should be. So in short, they've given us this amazing data model that we can simply understand and embrace versus designing everything from scratch. And again, because of the hierarchical nature of the data model, we can further extend that data model. So essentially create child tables, child classes in the ServiceNow terminology, and leverage the existing recommendations that ServiceNow has already put together for us. So we can accommodate these unique requirements while embracing the out-of-the-box capability of ServiceNow. And if you take this approach towards thinking about the CMDB and the design of these attributes and CI classes, you're already 10 steps ahead of anybody else who isn't. So with the CMDB taken care of and you have the design in place, you obviously are thinking about, okay, I got to populate that data, right? So here's 5 things that you need to think about when you're populating data. And I'm going to go over these very quickly. But really, the first is, of course, manual data entry, right? And that is usually aligned with logical CIs, attributes, and relationships. And that is a perfect strategy for the logical stuff, the stuff that cannot be discovered, the stuff that is in people's heads in various parts of the organization. That is definitely something that you would do. Of course, you want to make sure you don't overdo it and you embrace automation as much as possible. The second is one-time data imports. And we usually associate these with deprecated sources. So you may have an old tool or system that you're sunsetting. You may have siloed spreadsheets, some just unstructured data that you're in the process of structuring and importing that into ServiceNow. The next two are definitely the focus of our discussion, ServiceNow Discovery and Service Mapping. Now, ServiceNow Discovery is ideal for horizontal data, and what we really mean by that, and you've probably heard this term before, but for those who haven't, I want to discover all my servers. I want to discover all my network devices, all my firewalls, all my routers, right? So that's the perfect use case for ServiceNow Discovery, where you take a single CI class or single type of infrastructure, and you go across your network and you populate, discover, and populate that in the CMDB. Service mapping takes a top-down or a vertical approach where you have the business service, and then you look down from that business service. So you start with your load balancers, your web servers, app servers, operating systems, storage, and you go all the way down in your infrastructure stack, but it's only underpinning or supporting the business service or services that you've scoped for service mapping. And of course, we also encourage third-party solutions and integrations. So you can think of those as active sources that are not necessarily in ServiceNow at the moment, in the sense that you may have SCCM, you may have other integrations that are accurate and you trust them, and it just makes sense to integrate them, import them, clean them, transform, map them over into the ServiceNow CMDB. So when you're thinking of data population, definitely consider these 5 use cases and figure out for each of the sources that you're working with, or each of the target infrastructure items, the configuration items that you're planning to have in your CMDB, which data population approach or strategy works best for that subset of CI classes. Once you have the data population in place, there is still a few things to consider. And obviously, these items are more around the ServiceNow discovery phase. So we're kind of narrowing down into the focus of our discussion today. So when you talk about ServiceNow discovery and service mapping, credentials, mid servers, and schedules are definitely something that is a precursor to initiating your ServiceNow discovery. Now, credentials, of course, because ServiceNow discovery is not a hack, right? We need to get the authorized approval from folks within the organization, and it's a very deliberate, it's a very intentional way to populate your CMDB. The mid servers is ServiceNow technology that lives in your network that crawls your network. It sends out probes and sensors. It crawls your network, collects the data, and sends it back to ServiceNow. But the advantage of it being in your network is you don't have to poke external holes to your firewall. So there's that additional level of security, and that's why you would have mid servers. The schedules are really about telling ServiceNow what parts of the infrastructure you want to go after, when, and which parts you do not want to touch. So this really helps with scoping. It really helps with focusing on portions of the infrastructure that are valuable to you from a priority standpoint, and those that you want to be discovered in your CMDB. So with that taken care of, the next part, of course, is optimal configurations. And I'm often asked, should we just turn on discovery? How do we just make sure we only have what we need? And here's the kicker here, right? We've seen too many times people just wanting to turn on discovery. They get so much of data that they don't know what to do with it, and it's really, really very overwhelming. So recommendation is to focus on optimal configurations to align with only the portions of the infrastructure that you want to go after, and more importantly, the folks that are willing to work with you to help with the next step, which is troubleshooting and remediation. You see, discovery is an engine, and of course, like any engine, there is a need for troubleshooting. There's a need for remediation to make sure that the next bullet, of course, the ongoing maintenance is taken care of, like anything that we deploy in our environment. So with optimal configurations, a great strategy for troubleshooting and remediation from a technology as well as resources standpoint, and the notion of having the ongoing maintenance just underpins your journey when you start off with ServiceNow discovery and service mapping. But here's a few things that you want to think about. Now, when I say limitations, I'm not talking about the technology limitations. The products, discovery, service mapping, they're just great products, and they will do what they're supposed to do, what they're designed to do. But very often we come across customers and they say, hey, you know what, our network, it's cordoned off. There are firewalls and it's a very segmented network. And if you want to discover your whole network, and if you have those kinds of scenarios, we want to be very prudent about identifying which segment of the network or which segments of the network we want to go after, and design the mid servers accordingly so that you can actually access them. So we have to leverage the technology to the best that it applies to our environment, at least when we're starting, and that's definitely going to increase the chances of our success when we deploy ServiceNow discovery. And the same thing goes with service mapping. So let's say you're discovering a business service, but all of those underpinning application instances that are supporting that business service, they all have very unique configurations. what's going to happen is the pattern, when it reaches, when it hits something that's unique, a configuration file, it's going to choke. So start with something that's more standardized, that's more repeatable across your environment. So when you design, you invest in building a service mapping pattern, it just scales that much better. You get more success, and you can leverage that success, gain that momentum, and then scale out across the different parts of your infrastructure. So here are a few things you definitely want to consider before you even start or initiate your efforts for ServiceNow discovery and service mapping. But with that, let's dig a little deeper into Discovery Admin and what it can do for us. But before we get into the core features and you know, the how all of that works together, we definitely want to talk about the business value. Now, with Discovery Admin, we have it at several customers. It analyzes millions of logs. But the key thing here is that it is native to ServiceNow, which means there's no data leaving ServiceNow, and it's built completely on the ServiceNow platform. And of course, it's available on the ServiceNow store. But let's talk about the business value. And the business value is really around making sure that your CMDB is accurately maintained and reliably maintained, right? So with a great CMDB, what do you have, right? Think about the other processes that are using the data, because what we discussed before in the part one of the series is it's all about making sure the processes use the data, which enables the data to be more accurate, which enables the processes to leverage the data even more, and that cycle continues. So talking about ITSM was already referenced earlier in the call, incident management, change management, problem management, right? Something is broken. What is broken, right? Something is changing. What is changing? That is in the CMDB. With ITOM, of course, we have discovery and service mapping. That's a part of ITOM. Great. But if you have event management, orchestration, right? What are you automating, right? How can that be leveraged and scaled? Well, all of that is in the CMDB, and you need the CMDB to be accurate and reliable. ITBM comprises of business services, your application portfolio. And where is that stored? Well, it's stored in the CMDB with the relationships that James shared with you earlier in the webinar today. And of course, security operations. It talks about vulnerability management, security incident response. And when you are securing your devices, or when you're identifying that there's a vulnerability on a portion of your infrastructure, if that infrastructure is in your CMDB, just turbocharges or boosts up the way you do security operations. So as you can see, the real business value is not just about having great data. It's about having these other processes, other parts of the platform leverage this data and thereby have even a more increase or improve the accuracy of the CMDB. But when you're starting your journey with ServiceNow Discovery, or you're on your journey, here are 5 things that we recommend you absolutely think about for your implementation. Now, these 5 things are also the core features of Discovery Admin. But let's put Discovery Admin on the side right now. What we want to do is we want to explain to you these 5 core features, or these 5 core things that we recommend should be a part of every successful ServiceNow Discovery implementation. And if you can embrace even one or more of these, it's going to really help you with your implementation or your Discovery implementation in your current ServiceNow instance. So these 5 are really around configure, troubleshoot, customize, remediate, and populate. So let me go through each of these and shed some more light on that, right? So configure, I've already mentioned this before, right? Discovery Admin can automatically, proactively configure ServiceNow Discovery. But the key here is to only enable what you want in the CMDB, nothing more, nothing less. It is too easy to turn on Discovery, and it's too easy to have millions and millions of CIs in the CMDB. The real hard part is about just having what you need. And the way to configure that is not very hard at all. If you look at your probes, you look at your sensors, you look at your triggered probes, you look at your process classifiers, you look at your identifiers, all of these have an active flag. And you can surgically go in and enable and disable the active flags in your configuration to ensure that you're only discovering, or you're only telling ServiceNow to send out those subsets of probes and sensors, so that you only have what you really want in your CMDB. The next is, of course, troubleshooting. So you've sent everything out, you're getting data back. Now, Discovery Admin can do that 100x faster, and it's than an experienced administrator. And we have hundreds of predefined patterns underpinning the troubleshooting. But that's the capability that we leverage for the troubleshooting. In this context, what really happens and what you can take away is we have predefined error codes with documented root cause and remediation. So in your case, when you look at your logs and when you look at what's going on in your your instance as a part of the discovery logs, you can very easily identify the patterns that are the 80-20, if you may, and the root causes, like what is really causing this issue. And that way you can have those documented for remediation. But there's one more thing, right? Whenever there's an error, there's not just one log that is generated. There's often several logs that are correlated with the error. And what is important is the last bullet here, which is to ignore the irrelevant errors, eliminating false positives. Because when you look at, or when you analyze those logs, there are things you can correlate and say, if there is this portion of this pattern in the log, you can very easily eliminate these other logs, because the overarching error is what the root causes. And if you do not do that, when you're the records just get too overwhelming. That's number one. And when you're going out to get help from other folks to fix these issues, the folks closest to the infrastructure, you're going to get a lot of frustration and pushback from them, and that's going to kind of undermine the way discovery is working for you. The next is customize, right? So yes, we love to have a scenario where you install ServiceNow Discovery and we have everything discovered, and likewise. But with every environment, there's definitely something's unique, right? You may have some unique portions within your infrastructure. You may have some unique tweaks to ServiceNow Discovery to make it work for you. To accommodate those customizations, Discovery Admin, of course, has the ability to configure those rules within the product. But more importantly, what that does is to take an example where you have your Windows infrastructure, it's US and it's global, and you have different teams that are responsible for remediating, troubleshooting, supporting those different parts of the infrastructure. As a part of discovery troubleshooting, you need to be able to have the granularity to know that these errors, these devices go to this team for help, for troubleshooting, remediating likewise, and these others go to the other team. And that level of granularity is something that you need to be thinking about when you are analyzing your log. So once you do that, it's not just about, hey, here's an error, here's a spreadsheet with 1,000 records, and we're going to ship it out to 15 people and hope somebody responds. It's got to be very, very surgical if you want to get that due diligence for that troubleshooting, right? And the key here is, of course, within the app, you can document these rules, but if you have anywhere in your infrastructure, in your environment, where you can reference these rules, where you can have a way to build on these, that just goes a very long way. I mean, a fun fact, but Discovery Admin in its first iteration was spreadsheets, right? We built it off spreadsheets, and we had all of these rules in the spreadsheet before maturing to a scoped app in ServiceNow. So all of this can very well be developed, created internally as you mature your troubleshooting and how you manage your discovery implementation. Now, remediate. So this is definitely a fairly technical call, but once we figure out what is wrong, we need to reach out to other folks within the organization so that they can fix the issues on their infrastructure, on their infrastructure CIs, so that we can effectively discover them on an ongoing basis. Now, what Discovery Admin does is it uses incidents, right? So it auto-generates incidents, it auto-assigns them to the correct team, and it details the root cause and the remediation. And we can show all of that to you shortly after during the demo. But the key here is, if you're using spreadsheets, that's fine. Incidents, we believe, is a great way because you get that inherent SLA to engage the resources that you're working with. But it's very important to provide those root cause and remediation steps. So you can't just say, hey, these devices are not being discovered, figure it out and let us know. No, you have to be more proactive at our end to make sure we really guide them through those steps, because they have their day jobs and we want to make it really easy for them to help us, right? And of course, I didn't mention this before, false positives, the more you can eliminate them. Think of it this way, right? If you give them something that they don't support or that's really not an error, it's just going to reduce their capability to support you on things that have really, really gone wrong. So we want to make sure from a remediation standpoint, we're again very proactive about it. And finally, populate. Now, populate is it's not a, how do I put it, discovery. We build on discovery when we talk about populate, right? So let's take infrastructure CIs, say you have 10,000 CIs and you have, a good set of rich attributes that are discovered. But sometimes we do have manually maintained attributes on these infrastructure CIs, right? Think about owned by, managed by, and things along those lines, support group. Now, I just added 3 attributes. I have 10,000 CIs, and suddenly the manual overhead to maintain those has gone up to 30,000 data elements, right? And unfortunately, that's a human error, a human exercise, and just may end up with some errors associated with it. So what we do with Discovery Admin is we have these rules. So when you ask somebody, hey, why are you populating this person or this group? They say, oh yeah, it's the CI class, it starts with so-and-so, it's available at the data center. So there are attributes that are already on the CI that the user or the human is using to populate those manually maintained attributes. Well, guess what? You can configure those rules, capture them at one time, and it completely automates the population of these manually maintained attributes. And of course, that's an accurate and reliable CMDB. Right now, this of course can be done with business rules. So if that is something that you do have in mind, relatively straightforward, but definitely think about populating these manually maintained attributes. But think of it this way, these 5 steps, if you can embrace as a part of one or more, as a part of your discovery implementation, it's going to go a really long way in the overall health of your discovery and of course, your CMDB accuracy. Now, specific to discovery admin, of course, there's various ways to engage. There's project-based, subscription, managed services, but I'm going to spend too much time there. You can definitely reach out to us if there are any questions along that way. But now I want to kind of get into the meat of it, right? So what we want to do is we actually want to demo how it works so you have a better understanding of some of the features and capabilities, and also how you can leverage that in your own ServiceNow instance.
And we have a 5-minute demo video just for that, which I'll be playing right now.
Discovery Admin by QuickNexus, featured on the ServiceNow store. This video is a technical walkthrough of the core features of Discovery Admin. The application has 3 roles: Customer User, Customer Admin, and QuickNexus Admin. Let's start with the Customer User. Go to the Filter Navigator. Type Discovery Admin to see the list of modules available in the left navigation. Going down the list of modules under Discovery Admin, we have, under section Execute and Analyze, Discovery Status, which points to the list of recently run discovery schedules. Troubleshooting, where the troubleshooting and analysis of these discovery statuses takes place. And Recent Incidents, which links to the recently generated incidents as a part of the troubleshooting. The next section, Report, has the module Log Analysis. Log Analysis contains the results of the troubleshooting for further analysis and reporting. And section, Support, which contains the module Contact QuickNexus to contact QuickNexus Support. To start, the customer user goes to the Discovery Status module to identify one or more discovery statuses for troubleshooting. Then, in the Troubleshooting module, click New to generate a new troubleshooting record. On this new troubleshooting record, you will see the status of awaiting input. So, let's go ahead and select one or more discovery statuses we want to analyze. After which, we select Discovery Status Selection Complete. Notice the status now says Ready for Analysis. We always have the option to modify our Discovery Status Selection. Or, if we are ready, we can simply click Execute Error Code Analysis. Notice the status now says Analyzing Discovery Logs. Right now, Discovery Admin is analyzing, deduplicating, and consolidating the error logs to generate a comprehensive set of pre-configured incident error codes with predefined root cause and remediations. The analysis happens at about 1,000 discovery logs per minute, and when complete, the status is updated to Analysis Executed. And now, we can simply click Generate Incidents. This generates the relevant incidents and updates the status to Incidents Generated. And what you see in the Recent Incidents module is a single incident generated per incident error code as determined by Discovery Admin. Each incident not only has the correct attributes, including assignment group and short description pre-populated, it also has instructions detailing the root cause and remediation steps necessary for the assigned team to resolve the issue, along with a consolidated list of all the devices associated with this incident error code. However, if we don't want to generate incidents at this time, we can simply go to the Log Analysis module to see the results, which can be intuitively grouped or reported on. And this covers what we can do as a customer user. Now let's highlight the additional features available to the customer admin. The first set of features is under the section Setup, which has links to the relevant modules in the ServiceNow Discovery application. The next section, Configure, has links to incident error codes and incident error code mappings to configure additional customer-specific rules and control the generation of incidents. The section Administration has a module Initialization Script to auto-configure Discovery Admin to ensure it has the right access to read the required tables in ServiceNow. Finally, let's highlight the additional features available to the QuickNexus admin. The QuickNexus admin has access to the base error code and error code mapping repository. Additionally, we can also apply discovery configurations to auto-configure discovery and configure calculated attributes to enable the auto-population of manually maintained attributes in the CMDB. This concludes the technical walkthrough of the core features of Discovery Admin. QuickNexus, CMDB done right. We focus exclusively on the CMDB in ServiceNow.
Now, all of this, the product that we have, it is a scoped application. We actually are featured on the ServiceNow store. So one of the few apps that is featured on the ServiceNow store. You can access the store listing directly by going to discoveryadmin.com. But what I've shared right now, including the app demo, all of that is also available here. If you have any questions, of course, please reach out to us, and we will be happy to answer any more questions. Right. So this was, I mean, going back to the demo, this was the under the hood of what Discovery Admin is. But in my right mind, I cannot have a technology conversation without talking about process, and we have emphasized that so much in our the part one of the webinar series. Think of it this way: technology is the enabler, and the process is really what makes it happen. So just scratching on the surface, the process, 5 phases: plan, design, run, report, audit. This is fundamentally what configuration management is about. And if you're doing CMDB without process, it's like doing incident without incident management. It's like doing change without change management. If you're doing CMDB, you have to do configuration management. So I just want to highlight that. It's definitely something that you have to think about, and we can of course help you with that. And of course, we spoke about the alignment. Just kind of make sure everybody's speaking the same language. And if you're not sure, hey, where do I start? What to do? Let's do the right thing. We have a very mature way to guide you or drive you through that process. But with this, what we're really saying is that these are the core aspects of what you need to do to have a CMDB done right. With that, James, over to you.
All right, thank you, Shiv. That was fantastic. Now, I'll say this: I've been implementing ServiceNow's Discovery for better part of 8 years, and this is the Discovery Admin tool. The QuickNexus tool is probably the best thing that I've seen happen to it in several years. It certainly makes it much easier to maintain and work with the massive amounts of data that we can get, and it helps us overcome one of those big barriers to successful CMDB, which is over-reliance on technical solutions and way too much data. So, that's a really nice introduction to how ServiceNow works with Discovery and the QuickNexus Discovery Admin tool. If you are interested in seeing that firsthand, Shiv will be at Knowledge 18 in Las Vegas this coming May, as will Covestic. We will both have booths set up there. So if you would like an opportunity to see that in action, work with it yourself, you're certainly invited to come do so. You don't have to wait for Knowledge, however. If you are interested in a deeper dive into that, feel free to contact us and we can set up a time to talk more about the Discovery Admin tool, Discovery and/or CMDB in general, and talk a little bit about how to do a full assessment of your current CMDB and how to get you to that promised land of the capabilities. So with that, I think it is time for questions and answers. And if you have any questions or have had a chance to, please feel free to put those into the chat and we will answer whatever questions we have time to get to.
All right, this is Scott. Looks like this one's for you, Shiv. Can you describe what the implementation or setup of Discovery Admin looks like, and is it something that you find customers can self-implement?
Sure. So the setup, what we say is that if you have discovery in your non-prod, within 60 minutes we can give you a report with all the errors that you should be thinking about for your discovery implementation. So the value is that quick in terms of realization. As you saw in the demo, there are a few things that are unique to your environment, and we do expect to have a closer working relationship to make sure you have all of those rules in place. But typically, a typical discovery implementation, if you want to get it up and running, it's usually between 4 to 6 weeks, and we can roll in the implementation of discovery admin as a part of that rollout. So hopefully that answers your question. And this is for a mid-sized implementation. Of course, if your global data center is a very complicated environment, let's talk about that in person.
Okay, thanks, Shiv. Similar question, can the customizations you described in the demo be self-implemented?
Yes. So if you saw the incident error codes, that was a part of the customer admin role. So the example that I showed you, the customer plus QuickNexus, those were things that we worked with the customer in this customer example. But absolutely, you can add your own rules as a part of the ongoing use of the product, independent of us, and we'll obviously enable you to do that as a part of the deployment implementation goal.
Okay, great, thanks. Again, Shiv, you guys didn't talk a lot about service mapping. Is discovery admin associated with just ServiceNow discovery, or does it touch service mapping too?
Excellent question, right? So we know that, so short answer is service mapping, way more complicated when it comes to patterns, right? So what discovery admin does for service mapping is the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 troubleshooting. Service mapping obviously uses patterns, and there's a very high level of customization associated with that. But when we work with customers, we recommend they have the discovery in order prior to service mapping and leverage the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of what they've done with discovery to then just focus on the exploration probes, the patterns for service mapping. So in that context, there's a very high overlap, but to be very honest, the creation of the patterns and all of those very unique things, the discovery admin product cannot do it as of now.
Okay, great. And I think that is all for questions. I guess if any other questions come in between now and when we shut down the webinar, we will reach out to you directly with answers. And this final slide is obviously our contact information. If you have any questions for us regarding configuration management in general, the discovery admin solution, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get right back to you and try to schedule some time. So with that, that concludes today's session. I want to thank everybody for taking time out to join us. And again, back to Knowledge 18. If you can make it, we hope to see you there. Thanks very much.